Is Israel expected to attack Iran soon? President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are set to meet December 29 to persuade the United States. Today, let's take a closer look at this topic. Let's get right into it. According to a report by United States NBC, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu plans to meet with United States President Trump to explain the need for additional strikes against Iran. The Israeli government announced that the meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump will take place on December 29. Israel has announced the schedule, but the United States has not yet released any specific details, right? The reason Israel is trying to attack Iran like this is, according to Israel, because Iran's ballistic missile production facilities have been quickly restored. Israel says that during the 12-day war with Iran, they literally devastated the entire Iranian territory. In this process, they struck all the ballistic missile production facilities and nuclear facilities to make them unusable. The problem is that Iran has already managed to quickly restore its ballistic missile production facilities in such a short time. Nuclear enrichment facilities have also been rebuilt, as we've seen. Israel is very concerned about this because Iran's ballistic missile production could increase to as many as 3,000 per year. For Israel, this is the top security threat. On top of that, since Iran is also funding Hamas, Houthi, and Hezbollah, Israel knows better than anyone that if they don't completely destroy Iran, their own country will be in danger. Prime Minister Netanyahu has defined Iran's actions as a threat that requires a swift response and has shown an attitude that additional attacks on Iran are necessary. Right now, David Barnea, the head of Israel's Mossad, is insisting that Iran's nuclear development program must be stopped. David Barnea, the Mossad chief, stated that the desire to continue developing nuclear bombs is still alive and breathing in the hearts of Iranians. He also said we must work with the United States to ensure the badly damaged nuclear project is never operated. Israel's main officials continue to mention that Iran's nuclear development must be stopped. Interestingly, Israel holds a summit with President Trump. They plan to propose a United States participation option rather than ask President Trump for permission. So, in other words, they're planning to attack Iran, and they're visiting the United States to ask if the United States will join the attack. According to a report by United States NBC, Prime Minister Netanyahu may propose to President Trump a plan similar to what he suggested during the previous United States airstrike on Iran, reports say. During that airstrike, Israel gave Trump 4 options. First, Israel acts alone. Second, limited United States support. Third, a joint United States-Israel operation. Fourth, United States acts alone. Is it likely that the United States will propose this now? It is being evaluated that President Trump is likely to respond positively to such a proposal from Israel. After the airstrike on Iran, President Trump has continuously supported Prime Minister Netanyahu's military actions, both publicly and unofficially, and has shown an attitude that sees Israel's security concerns as directly linked to America's strategic interests. In particular, President Trump has defined Iran as the main axis of instability in the Middle East, and has repeatedly expressed the view that failing to strongly pressure Iran's nuclear development and missile capabilities early on could lead to a much larger war in the future. From this perspective, Israel's preemptive military actions are viewed as preventive steps to eliminate threats, not reckless provocations. In fact, even during periods of peak tension with Iran, President Trump has rarely publicly criticized Israel's military operations. On the contrary, he has emphasized that the United States stands on the same side as Israel. After the Iranian airstrike, some praised Prime Minister Netanyahu's decisiveness, and messages showed United States and international understanding of Israel's unique security situation. What is even more noteworthy is that President Trump has shown a willingness to intervene deeply not only in diplomatic matters, but also in Israel's domestic political issues. President Trump is known to have repeatedly requested a pardon for Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israeli President Herzog, which can be interpreted as a reflection of his view of Netanyahu as a key figure in Israel's security policy. From President Trump's perspective, Prime Minister Netanyahu is seen as the leader who can work most effectively with him and maintain a strong stance in the confrontation with Iran. In other words, it is highly likely that he sees Prime Minister Netanyahu being shaken by political issues or losing power itself as a destabilizing factor for Israel's security. In this context, this summit holds significance beyond just a diplomatic event. It is highly likely that President Trump will support Prime Minister Netanyahu's military strategy and send a signal to the international community that the United States is still maintaining a hardline stance on the Iran issue. At the same time, it is also possible that the meeting will serve as a practical strategy session to coordinate whether the United States will intervene directly or tacitly approve or provide limited support for Israel's operations. President Trump's position signals strong support for Israel and increases pressure on Iran, making further conflict more likely. Meanwhile, Iran appears to be continuing to tighten control over its internal situation. I previously said Iran had only 2 weeks of drinking water left due to no rain and shared a video. Now, heavy rain is causing floods in southern Iran. They've partly solved the drinking water issue, but public sentiment toward the Iranian regime remains poor, so they're tightening internal control. Recently, on December 20th, a man in Iran was executed for allegedly aiding the Israeli intelligence agency. Authorities arrested this person while filming military facilities in Urmia, northwestern Iran. The Iranian judiciary said he aided Israeli intelligence by committing over 200 espionage acts in Tehran and other cities, leading to a death sentence. Iranian authorities also misuse the death penalty to suppress anti-government sentiment. The United Nations estimated that from January to September 2025, the number of people who died by revolutionary executions would exceed 1,000. Since the trials at the Revolutionary Court are held behind closed doors, the prevailing analysis is that the actual number of executions is likely even higher than this. In response, Iran recently made an unusual move by publicly displaying key military assets, including hypersonic missiles, to the general public. This move was not just a simple weapons exhibition, but a direct response aimed at addressing the growing distrust in military power spreading within Iran. Last June, Iran suffered more damage than expected in its clash with Israel, especially as it became publicly known that Iran's air defense network was breached and major military bases were struck. Questions began to be openly raised within Iranian society about whether the Iranian military could truly defend the country. From their perspective, such doubts are actually a much more dangerous factor than external sanctions or airstrikes. That's why Iran publicly displayed its tightly controlled strategic weapons in a military exhibition. At the military exhibition, they displayed hypersonic missiles, medium and long-range ballistic missiles, many drones, and the wreckage of an Israeli drone claimed to have been shot down during the war with Israel. This exhibition was more of a political event aimed at impressing upon the public that we are not just a country that gets attacked. At this event, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard emphasized that Iran is no longer a country that relies solely on defense, but has risen to the ranks of a military powerhouse capable of developing and even exporting its own missile technology. In particular, hypersonic missiles are symbolic weapons capable of neutralizing the air defense systems of the United States and Israel, and regardless of their technical deployment or operational status, their very existence is intended to serve as a psychological deterrent. With this exhibition, Iran's leaders aim to boost internal unity and signal during negotiations that their military options remain active. This military exhibition is not just for showcasing technology, but a political move to restore regime confidence after the June conflict and to suppress anxiety in Iranian society with a show of force. Is Israel still preparing for war? Israel has finished developing the Iron Beam, set for first delivery to the Israeli military on October 30, 2025. Iron Beam intercepts low-cost weapons like drones or rockets with lasers. With a continuous energy source, it never runs out of ammunition. Because only generator fuel is needed, the launch cost is nearly zero. Intercepting drones or rockets with the Iron Dome, costing over 60 million won per shot, isn't cost effective. The Iron Beam, expected to intercept drones more efficiently, will likely be used for more affordable defense in future conflicts. During the war with Iran, Israel sustained significant damage from Iranian drones, so it will be interesting to see how Israel's Iron Beam performs going forward. Regarding this, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu argued on November 30th that he should be pardoned for the sake of the national interest. Prime Minister Netanyahu decided to submit a 111-page petition for pardon to Israeli President Herzog. Netanyahu cited national unity as essential to overcoming threats and seizing opportunities as the reason for his pardon request. He also mentioned that former President Trump had requested a pardon from President Herzog for himself as another reason for submitting the petition. Prime Minister Netanyahu also said he hopes all who care about the national interest will back this measure. However, in Israel, pardons are usually only granted after the legal process is complete and a guilty verdict has been confirmed. Prime Minister Netanyahu has never admitted to any of the charges against him so far. Some Israeli opposition politicians argue a pardon should be granted only if Netanyahu retires from politics and admits guilt. In November 2019, Netanyahu was indicted for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Due to the seriousness of these crimes, a pardon is unlikely. In addition, from October 3rd to 4th, a survey was conducted in Israel regarding a pardon for Netanyahu, and 53.2% expressed opposition to the pardon, so the Israeli public is also not favorable toward pardoning Netanyahu. Because of this, some people suggest that Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to solve these problems. Some say he may be trying to start a war. What do you think about Israel's current situation? Do you think they will attack? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. That's the end of the video. Thank you.